Welcome back, guys, to another ABL Sports video. Today we are starting our series of the draft prospect rankings. So how this series is going to work for you guys who aren't familiar is at ABL we have the top 5 to 10 players at each position in the draft, depending on how deep that position group is in the draft, and we're basically just going to rank them from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, and we're just going to go position by position. So our first video is going to be the quarterbacks because that is the most important position in all of sports. So we're going to start off with the number one quarterback ranking. Number one quarterback is Fernando Mendoza. So at ABL we have him graded as an early first round pick. And how we evaluate quarterbacks is very different from everybody else. So in Fernando Mendoza, in terms of just the Indiana games this year, I looked at only a few games. The first game I looked at was the game at Oregon in Autzen. The second game I looked at is the game we're watching right now against Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. I watched the first half of the Alabama game. I watched, like the first quarter of the second Oregon game because I was a blowout, and then I watched the full Miami game for his tape. And you guys might ask, why might I think? And I also watched the Penn State and Iowa games as well. And you guys might ask, why not watch every game? Well, all the teams I just mentioned are the only teams he's playing that have NFL worthy competition. Like Ohio State, in that front seven alone, you got Sonny Styles, you got Arvell Reese, you got McDonald, the defensive tackle. In the secondary, you got Caleb Downs, who I'll give you guys a spoiler, is our best rated player in the draft. You also have Jermaine Matthews, who is going to be a stud next year. So this was probably, in my opinion, his steepest competition in terms of defense. And, he had a rough first half, but he ended up playing good. And I have him graded as an early first round pick in this draft. Now, let's say he was in the 2024 quarterback draft. Would I have him as like a top 5 prospect? No. But this isn't the 2024 quarterback draft, so we have to stop comparing him to that. This is the 2026 draft. So, Fernando Mendoza, I think he's tough. I think my kind of comparisons for him, I think he's a mix of a Jared Goff, a Kirk Cousins, and I see a little Matt Stafford in him as well. So, Fernando Mendoza, great player. Um, Mendoza, great player. Like I said, I see a lot of Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, but I do have a concern with him. And that concern is, can he make plays from just inside the pocket? And I know in this game in the third quarter, he made a fantastic throw. And I give him full credit for that. But also, there's times where, he has to move outside the pocket to make a play. Like, for example, right here, he didn't just sit in the pocket, he had to move outside, get outside. And I know that's a trait you need in the modern NFL, but sometimes you have to sit in the pocket. And I'm not saying he can't take a big hit, but there comes a certain point where, you kind of just want to sit in the pocket, smooth throw. And I haven't seen much of that with Mendoza. I don't know if he's the savior for the Raiders because we all know they're going to pick him number one, but I do believe he is going to be a very good player for the Raiders in the NFL. So my next graded player for the quarterback, so my second ranked quarterback in this draft is Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. And I have him as a mid second round pick. So a lot of you probably expect Ty Simpson to be our second ranked quarterback, but no, I think Garrett Nussmeier is that second ranked quarterback. And as you can see, there's a big, gap between Mendoza and Garrett Nussmeier. So with Garrett Nussmeier, I think it's a tale of 2 years. 2024, he had a very solid year, and if he won in that draft, he would probably have been a solid third rounder, but he decided to come back. But, LSU season, kind of a disaster. And, we saw a different side to him. I know he had the foot and ankle injury in camp, and I think that did affect him a bit. And I know he got benched at the end of the year, but I do think Garrett Nussmeier is a solid player, and at the very least, he will be a very good NFL backup. So first off, with Garrett Nussmeier, no character issues whatsoever. He's a coach's son. He got number 18 his senior at LSU. So he's a good leader, good locker room guy. And I just think, I've heard nothing but praise about him. And I also think, part of his, faults was because of Brian Kelly and his, incompetence in coaching. I mean, look at Notre Dame. I mean, they're as good as they've ever been. They're the best. They're as good as they've been since Lou Holtz was their coach. So Garrett Nussmeier, I do believe, will be will be in the NFL for a long time. Like, he might be a backup, but I still think he is a very solid player. And let's say you're a team like the Jets or the Cardinals, and you have a second or third round pick. Like, you're not going to be anything this year. Why not take a flyer on this guy like the Texans did with Davis Mills a couple years ago? He started, a season for them, played decently, net well, and now he's one of the most reliable backups in the league. So Garrett Nussmeier, my second ranked quarterback prospect in this draft, after very solid player. So my third ranked quarterback in this draft is Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama. So Ty Simpson, very interesting college football career. Started his career under Nick Saban, and then Kalen DeBoer gets hired. Loses the job to Jalen Milroe last year. Gets the job this year, but there was a lot of controversy, and he was kind of forced out of Alabama. It was either enter the NFL draft or transfer, and he didn't want to transfer. Felt a lot like a Quinn Ewers situation, if I might. And Ty Simpson, I don't see the first rounder. He throws a decent ball, but that deep ball, it's not there. He's got some running ability. I mean, this Georgia game he played great in. That's kind of like I said with Mendoza. I do the same thing with every quarterback. I look at the games. I mean, right here, fantastic throw. It's just Brian Williams dropped it. But it's Ty Simpson. It's just I don't see like there's rumors the Rams like him, the Jets like him, like the Steelers like him. I don't see it. Like I really don't see it with him. Like I said, he could be another guy, good locker room guy, could be a good backup, but as a starting quarterback in the NFL, I think there was only one starting NFL starting quarterback in this draft, and it is Fernando Mendoza. And like I said, I don't know if he's a surefire thing. I don't have him rated as a prospect like I did Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Like I would say I probably had Mendoza a bit above Cam Ward, but Ty Simpson, I mean, I think, second round pick, a team could take a flyer on him, but I really don't think he is an NFL starting quarterback. Quarterback I have Drew Allar rated as my fourth best quarterback in this draft. I have him graded as an early fourth round pick, and the injury does affect him a bit. So Drew Allar, I'm gonna be completely honest. I paid attention in this process to less than 10 of his college games. So we'll go year by year. 2025, only game of his that I thought mattered was the Oregon game. Last year, I thought the games that mattered, the Ohio State game, when they lost to Ohio State at home, which he didn't play particularly well, the Big Ten championship against Oregon, their playoff against Penn State, because SMU and Boise State, those are teams, they would schedule in week 1 and 2. And then the year before that, his first year, I paid attention to the Michigan game and Ohio State game. So, and I'm going to be honest, he didn't play particularly well in any of those games outside of maybe the Oregon game his in 2024, and also the USC game he played them in 2024, played probably his best game of his career. But Drew Allar is your prototypical NFL quarterback in terms of body, throwing mechanics, all that. Like he's a giant. He's 6'5", he's 230, he's got the size of Ben Roethlisberger. If you're building a quarterback in a lab in terms of like how you want them to look, it's Drew Allar. The problem is his play. I just, when he was getting number one pick hype this year, because I'm pretty sure he was the betting favorite to be the number one pick in this year's draft. It was either him or Garrett Nussmeier. I just didn't see it because I just didn't see him perform against good teams. That was my problem with Drew Allar. And it's just like I felt like, he was supposed to lift up Penn State. And it's not like this was a bad roster. Penn State had three great rosters, or not great, like two very good, one great roster in his 3 years starting there. And I felt like it was the same thing every year. Like he'd play Ohio State, and it would be like, well, the defense is going to have to win. When you have a quarterback that is supposed to preseason projected number one overall pick, he should be the reason why you're competing in games against Ohio State, not in spite of him. Like, yes, that was a great throw against Oregon right there. But about 10 minutes later in overtime, he made a throw that cost him the game. Like he threw an interception. But Drew Allar, you know, like I said, don't think he's an NFL starter. If there were a quarterback that would surprise me, and like that could be an NFL starter that like I just saw out of nowhere, similar to like what a Dak Prescott was about 12 years ago, it would be Drew Allar in this draft. simply because of his build, his mechanics, all that, prototypical bullshit that they talk about. But Drew Aller, like I said, it's just, I don't see it. He's got the size, he can run a bit, and he's got a big arm, but I don't see it with this guy. I really don't. I know Penn State fans won't be happy with me, but Drew Aller, I mean, just the tape against the good teams, I just don't see anything. All right, so my final quarterback in this video, I have him ranked as my fifth best quarterback in this draft, Luke Altmyer, quarterback from Ole Miss, transferred to Illinois for his final 3 seasons. I have him graded as a mid-fifth round pick. Not much to say. I think he's a backup quarterback. I think he's a good player. I had him graded above Carson Beck in this draft. I had him graded above Miller Moss as some notable guys in this draft. This isn't a great quarterback draft. Next year will be the very good quarterback draft. Next will be a 2024 type quarterback draft. But Luke Altmyer, he was a solid college football player. I think maybe he'll be a 6th round pick, but I don't think he'll amount to much in the NFL. But I give him credit. He did the transfer portal the right way. He didn't, at Illinois, he didn't get immediate play time, but he waited his turn. He went in. He beat good teams. He beat USC. He contended with Iowa. Like last year, they knocked off a couple good teams as well. But Luke Altmyer, mid 5th round quarterback, just, you know, I don't see it.